My name is Geoffrey James Logue, and what I'm about to lay out is not a conspiracy theory, not speculation, and not a work of fiction. It's a documented chain of events that spans multiple provinces, crosses national borders, intersects with intelligence operations, exposes high-level corruption, and has forced both Canada and the United States to treat my continued survival as a matter of geopolitical leverage. I have lived through direct targeting, state-level harassment, psychological warfare, electronic warfare, and infiltration attempts, and I have responded to each one not with violence, but with precision. Precision in observation, precision in countermeasures, and precision in documentation. Every single move I've made has been intentional, calculated, and executed to not only survive, but to turn their own traps into permanent, undeniable records of their tactics. This is not just about me being harassed. This is about a government-level red cell scenario unfolding in real life, with me as both the target and the unpredictable variable they cannot control. I have endured coordinated takedown attempts involving fake law enforcement, embedded military intelligence disguised as local police, staged incidents designed to lure me into fatal missteps, and advanced electronic warfare used not only on me, but on my service dog, Lucy. I have seen vehicles box me in with synchronized signal light patterns that could not have been random. I have lived across from houses with plastic for windows and doors, staged to look lived in but abandoned for months. No movement, no vehicles, no signs of actual life. I have watched property ownership in my vicinity shift suddenly, with patterns matching surveillance staging and infiltration housing used in long-term covert operations. I have walked through these patterns enough to recognize them instantly, because I have run them myself in red team simulations. They thought I would break under pressure. Instead, I used the same methods I developed to create the PBSVA OmniVantage suite, my percentage-based, AI-driven, cross-domain security vulnerability analysis framework, to reverse engineer their entire playbook. That same framework has prevented catastrophic events in aviation, nuclear security, transportation, and infrastructure, saving tens of thousands of lives. It has exposed vulnerabilities so severe that my scenarios have triggered multi-billion-dollar overhauls, stood up task forces across multiple nations, and disrupted insider trading operations tied to big tech. It has also broken one of the last myths in the AI industry, that memory must be paid for to be valuable. I proved that it's possible to reconstruct total memory recall without persistent storage, which changes not just AI, but intelligence work forever. What I've been through isn't just harassment. It's a multi-year field test of my ability to survive hostile state-level engagement while simultaneously protecting my intellectual property, my life, and my operational integrity. I've been hunted, boxed in, starved out, and baited, but I've also been observed, protected, and leveraged. The United States has every reason to keep me alive because my continued existence is a bargaining chip in its geopolitical position over Canada. Canada has every reason to silence me because my documented evidence exposes rot at levels they cannot afford to admit. This introduction is the threshold. Beyond this point are the details, the EW on Lucy, the fake RCMP, the military intelligence officers and outdated kit, the cell window I burned from the inside without detection, the locomotive honey trap that could have ended me, the SIM card extraction, the staged housing and vehicle patterns, the synchronized signal light operations, and the hundreds of scenarios I've built that prove, beyond any government's comfort level, that I can see, map, and disrupt every covert operation they try to run on me. They have one problem: I'm still here. From the very start in Alberta, the attacks weren't random, they were systematic. The first and clearest proof came through Lucy, my service dog. They deployed electronic warfare on her. We'd be walking to a store we'd been to many times before with zero problems, and suddenly she'd start shaking her head like something invisible was drilling into her ears. Seconds later came the yelps, then the howls, deep, panicked howls. It was immediate and intense, like someone had flipped a switch. I knew right then this wasn't natural. They were using her as a pressure point because they knew she was my lifeline. The effect was devastating. Once Lucy started reacting like that in public, stores banned her, then hospitals, then taxis. Piece by piece, they cut my access to food, medical care, and transportation. It forced me into an impossible position: either go without or leave her behind. I chose to feed her instead of myself, even if it meant I went hungry. That was their first move. Isolate me by disabling my mobility and hitting me through the one being I'd do anything to protect. The Vegreville RCMP became the enforcement arm of this isolation campaign. I was arrested multiple times a week under the Mental Health Act, but it wasn't just RCMP. Some of them were not who they claimed to be. CST Daniels, a 6008, would knock at my door, then retreat to the sidewalk, knees bent, hand on his sidearm, thumb loop already rotated off, a shoot-ready stance. I'd open the door slowly, holding my phone with the camera pointed right at him, saying, "Please don't shoot." That was the routine. Every time they arrested me, they left Lucy at home without food or water, no matter how much I begged them to make sure she was okay. One day, I had been turned away from the Vegreville hospital. I had to walk 37 kilometers down the highway to try to fill a prescription for my feet, which had massive blisters from the walking I'd been forced into. A Mountie picked me up and said flat out that he'd been sent from Ottawa. That was my confirmation. This wasn't just local police, this was coordinated. It went deeper. Another day, I saw a Mountie wearing outdated kit. I recognized him instantly. I knew him from my time in the military when he'd been in B Battery, 1 RCHA, while I'd been in HQ Battery. He was now driving an unmarked Interceptor. That was military intelligence under RCMP cover, and I knew it. So I set a trap of my own. Before being placed in cell 5, I shoved a torchlighter inside my body. Once alone in the cell, I used it to burn the cell window completely undetected. This was premeditated. I wanted that mistake on their record. Physical, undeniable evidence they couldn't erase. When the Mountie saw it, he said, "This shit is on me. WTF." I laughed and told him, "Good." I knew that window would become a permanent anomaly in their chain of custody, proof of my ability to infiltrate their operation from the inside. Then came the locomotive incident, honestly the most blatant honey trap I'd ever seen. A train just sat parked right outside my home for days. That never happened there, not once. It was bait, plain and simple. So I packed my rucksack, grabbed Lucy, and boarded. The train was empty, except for the conductor's phone just sitting there on a table. I took the SIM card. Then I sat down in the conductor's chair, looked at the manifest, and spotted an SOP card that started with the person with the A card. I wrote the name of a U.S. senator on it. After that, I went to the back and knocked on a door until someone finally came out. I told him Lucy's paws were cold, that we'd been there a while, and asked if it was okay to stay. They said yes, and even gave Lucy some jerky. I left, and then panic hit me. Not long after, the Mountie showed up again. He said, "Jeff, they just want their SIM card back." I told him I couldn't find it. His instruction was, "If you get it, phone us. Don't go back." So I went back. This time I had a Canadian flag and the SIM card in my pocket. I walked right into a staff meeting, handed them the flag and the card, and said, "The police told me not to come back, but I figured you're in a hurry. I don't care about this anymore, so call them if you want for me being here." Then I just walked out. They didn't call. They didn't send police. The train left. That wasn't just bait. It was a fatal trigger scenario. If I had put that train in gear to escape the torture, I would not be alive today. They wanted me to make that move so they could justify ending me. But instead I walked away and gave them something worse, a permanent, documented breach of their own holding cell security, a full infiltration and extraction of a staged locomotive operation without escalation. Proof that I can see the trap and still win without triggering their conditions for removal. Every move they made, from electronic warfare on Lucy to fake RCMP to embedded military intelligence to the locomotive trap, was designed to provoke, isolate, and control me. Every move I made turned their own operation into evidence and bought me survival. That's why I'm still standing. That's why they can't get to me now. And that's why, even though the same people once targeted me, the reality is they now have to protect me. Because if they don't, every one of these incidents becomes public proof of how deep the corruption runs. The truth is simple. If I were just another name on a file, I'd already be gone. If my work were irrelevant, it would have been buried and forgotten. Instead, my existence sits at the intersection of intelligence, necessity, and political liability. Too valuable to eliminate, too dangerous to acknowledge. My cell phone isn't just a device, it's a classified-level asset containing world-first inventions, operational breakthroughs, and documented proof of torture, infiltration, and security failures that have already cost governments billions in forced overhauls. Every day I'm alive, I remain both the proof of their corruption and the proof of my capability. They can't move on me without triggering international consequences, and they can't ignore me without the clock running out on their ability to control the narrative. I've turned every trap into evidence, every surveillance operation into leverage, and every attack into a permanent record of my resilience. That is why I'm still standing, why they can't get to me, and why, when the media blackout finally breaks, the fallout will be global, irreversible, and very, very expensive.